Hi, welcome to Mom Cooks and Gardens. With spring approaching, we thought now would be a great time to do a flashback video and go over how we created the garden on the top of the hill. So we wanted to create the garden as inexpensively as possible, sourcing local materials and the biomass available here on the property. Because of the constraints we have with these steep slopes and no access to the top of the garden hill, it really was a challenge to try to create compost and use up the materials that we had, cutting back the green areas with a lot of the trees that we cut down, so on and so forth. So yeah, take a look. So this is where we started back in 2020. You can see that there was a fortress of green acres, I guess, wisteria, trumpet vine, all kinds of things growing wild. They really covered up that retaining wall. There you can see a nice shot where it's encroaching upon the house. That was a problem because the vines were actually getting tangled up into our HVAC system. After having everything removed, the only thing we kept were 2 persimmon trees that you can see kind of to the left. This is a shot of the hill after everything was cleared out. We contacted a local landscape company called Sorbello Landscape, and they did an awesome job of clearing the property. This is showing where we laid down some grass seed and straw. Here's another angle where you can really see the slope of the hill, but the grass was there to prevent erosion. That was something we faced after our first couple rains, and it really shows off the beauty of the wall. This is a picture of the top of the hill. We had laid down some black plastic to solarize, and once we lifted it up, you can see the progress we made at keeping these, I guess, wisteria from growing back. But we encountered a lot of more mature saplings and trees, and that was something we didn't feel we could handle on our own. So at the end of that summer, we contacted Sorbello to come and remove the rest of that foliage.
All right, we're joining Mom Cooks and Gardens, and she's starting to convert this 20 by 20 space into it's not going to be quite raised bed gardens. We're going to skip the borders, but I've been hoarding cardboard from all of my purchases, and I brought it up on the hill for her. And if it looks like capital E's to you in opposition to each other, that's because that's exactly what the shape is. And it's 20 feet from border to border. The walkways are approximately 4 feet wide, and her stipulation to me was that everything has to be, you can have no more than 2 feet of reach to get to any place. I wanted to taper this into a V right here, but it would have violated her edict, and she was having nothing of it. It would have yielded more usable space out of the square, but she said no, and she actually didn't want it to look crappy. So I was overruled, and she's smirking. That smirk could light up a room. So we're starting off with you didn't put the mesh down underneath there, right? Because that would have defeated the purpose, and worms wouldn't have been able to get through it.
Right, the mesh is everywhere the cardboard isn't, and I haven't finished yet. I still have to put the landscape fabric down on this end and this end. This roll wasn't long enough, and I want one continuous piece to go straight to the end of the garden.
Okay.
But we've got a lot of debris in the way, so.
Okay. And we have some, so this is from old firewood from a couple years ago that we don't actually have a working fireplace. So the bark, they're chewed up with wood and boring insects, etc. So she's taking the bark and making it into like traditional looking instead of manufactured looking. Well, it's kind of cool. Yeah. I'm actually liking this.
Waste not, want
as long as I'm not you're gonna have the world's strongest wrist at the end of this.
I'm just making sure that, I mean, I could lay down full sheets of mulch and walk, bark and walk on it, but I was trying to pick out the stuff that might go through the chipper. So this is all good mulch.
Yep.
These two will go through the chipper.
Okay. So this is lasagna. This is gonna be the lasagna method. We're starting with cardboard for weed suppression, and it breaks down very quickly, despite what you would think. And then we're gonna go over it with straw, not hay, straw.
Well,
I believe.
technically, if we had alfalfa bales, that would be the next layer, but we don't have that.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna lay down a light bed of straw. Then I'm gonna add some grass clippings.
Okay.
Some of the leaves are starting to fall, so I'll rake some of them up and sprinkle them.
Mom voice.
Then, I know, because I can't outcompete the lawnmower. And then as the tomato plants start to die, we'll lay them down. The green layer, brown layer, green layer. Then when all the leaves start to fall, we'll chip up the leaves, we'll throw them in to the compost pile, and hopefully by spring we'll have a lot of topsoil.
Yep.
But the idea is take what you have, spread it around, zero waste, it's free. Welcome back to Mom Cooks and Gardens. Today I am working on day 2 of getting the garden together. It's the first week of October, and it's kind of like now or never. Soon the leaves will be falling. We want to harvest them to use as compost, so we don't have to buy it. And secondly, we put a lot of outlay out this year to have the top of the hill cleared. I'm sure if you've been watching the videos, you saw what it looked like when they scraped everything. So yesterday, it's been about a month and a half, I came out and we had a little bit of weeds starting to sprout up, so I went ahead and I cleared the hill again, and I dug out a lot of roots. You can see this is my root pile. These are all roots and things, stumps that were sticking out of the ground. I'm gonna let these dry and see if I can't chip them. You can see over here I have a pile of bark that came off the firewood I split, and we're going to use these wood chips down on the pathways. It'll probably offset the cost just a little, not a lot, but it's better than nothing, and it keeps it from the landfill. Here is my green bin. This is all the weeds that I pulled out of the hilltop. You could see they'll make nice green compost. And here's the brown. I'm also using kitchen scraps, which this is our pile of kitchen scraps and such, coffee grounds. And what we'll do is probably right over there by those stalks, we'll put some posts in, and we'll use some of that deer netting we got in the back of the old Ford 150 to create like a corral for the compost through the winter. Now, our wildflower garden up at the front of the house has kind of reached its end, so went ahead and harvested all the tall flowers, which are mainly cosmos and sunflower. And I'm going to spread these out just a little bit on the side of the garden to let them dry. And then we're going to try and attempt to set them through the shredder along with that root and vine stock. We'll see how it goes. Either way, it'll make great mulch for the walkways or the compost pile, and if not, we'll just chuck it all in and compost it down. So this morning I came out early and started laying down the landscape fabric for the borders of the garden. I went with 4-foot widths. The reason being I want to be able to bring a wheelbarrow in, and once things start to grow in this bed, they're going to crowd the walkways. So I definitely will have at least a 2-foot path between, you know, the excess growth. This is probably the best angle to see the garden. I went with a modified keyhole design. They talk a lot online about creating gardens that utilize or maximize the space you have, but you also want to be able to reach. One of the advantages to having raised beds is that you don't compress the soil, and it keeps it nice and fluffy so that the roots of your plants can really dig down. So I don't want to be crawling in these beds to weed or plant, and we'll you know, keep that nice crumbly soil for the plant roots. But number 2 is that we're maximizing space. Now I know these posts are kind of ugly, but it was the best method I could see for laying out the beds so I could visualize them. We have a 20 by 20 square. I felt like that was the largest geometric shape I could fit on this hilltop. You'll notice like I have a wedge shape in here that I can create impromptu beds. I think for things like that, I probably will do more permaculture, things like rhubarb and asparagus, things that won't get moved and can live there a long time. But I wanted to be able to use square foot gardening in the garden proper, which is why I wanted these 4-foot by 8-foot beds, and then joining them are 4-foot by 4-foot beds. So you can see that we'll be able to come in there on the black fabric, and we'll be able to reach 2 feet to the center of the bed no matter where we stand. I will be removing these posts once we have, you know, probably in the spring. I'll leave them here now just because in the winter time it's going to be hard to tell what's going on since we don't have any defined borders. My goal here is to make a garden as inexpensively as possible, utilizing as much material that we can source from our own property. And probably the main reason for that is we're on a hill with no access. So if I bring you down here to the edge of the garden, you can see that's quite a slope. And surrounding the hill on all sides is that stone wall. So it makes it almost impossible to fill up wheelbarrows and truck it up the hill. And of course we've got a staircase on this side and a staircase on that side. So anything I can source from the top of the hill or create myself is less I have to truck up. Eventually we'll be surrounding the garden with a split rail fence. It will serve as a hand railing up this stair across the front. It will cut across the garden here and then go down that stair as a handrail again. Now, just in our imaginings this year, we decided that we probably will also put a split rail across the back and down to the woodshed we're making, just to keep the deer out. And we'll see how that works out. Here's the little strawberry beds that I made a couple weeks ago before the hurricane came through, and they look like they're doing really quite well. So in a few, probably my next weekend off, it depends on how cold it gets, but they might be ready to like mulch for the winter. I will continue this bed across, and I probably will put another one in, but I have to make some first out of the daughter plants up in the front strawberry bed. So that is the progress we've made. Today I'm going to mow the lawn, and I'll be bringing all those grass clippings up and spreading them over the cardboard. So my first layer of cardboard is just to suppress weeds, and then will come a layer of green. That'll be grass clippings. and some of this green material here in the compost bin. Then I'll probably distribute some of these leaves, and then as fall kicks in, we'll work on composting those leaves with our kitchen scraps for the winter. There'll probably be a lot more green coming as the hill up front here with all its herbaceous perennials starts to die back. You know, the hostas and the daylilies and such, along with our tomato plants, all of those can be added in as well. So hopefully by next spring we'll have some nice thick beds. We'll top it off with our homemade compost, and then we'll see where we're at. I still have a lot of firewood to chop. You can tell here the bark is just coming right off, and the wood that's still good is being cut up for the firewood, but this bark is going to be added to the walkways as just a mulch. All right, so now we're on step 2 of the garden building on top of the hill, and step 2 is to lay down a layer of green. So we mowed the lawn, we bagged the clippings, also the weeds from the top of the hill were saved, and we spread them out on top of the cardboard in about a 2-inch layer. So a storm had rolled in and we had to kind of leave it at that. Today we're going to soak down this layer and add a layer of straw. So I'm going to start off with 2 bales, see how far we get with that. And throughout the fall, as we harvest and cut back some of the tomato plants and the hostas and other herbaceous material from the garden, we'll probably mow once more. We'll just keep alternating layers of green and brown, about 2 inches thick. Hopefully that this method is going to break down over the winter, and by spring we'll have some usable compost. We're also going to set up a corral for the leaves that are going to fall, and we're going to make some leaf compost and leaf mold as well, and that'll be the last layer that tops the straw in the straw beds that we built over the winter, and we'll be able to plant during the spring. So I'm going to get started on that, but this is where we are at this moment. All right, so this is what it looks like after we got our layer of straw on top of our layer of green yard waste. So we've got the cardboard, a green layer, a layer of straw. We'll do another layer of green in a couple weeks. Then we'll add some brown in the form of leaves, and we're just gonna alternate. But first 2 layers down. Got everything spread out. This is our green layer. It looks pretty good. If I can show you, you can see how thick that layer is. Nice, thick, full of all kinds of vegetation. I still have more to go. I didn't finish the front or the side of the yard, so there will be at least another bag coming. But yeah, I think this looks pretty good so far. Of course, we put that layer of peat down. Hopefully that will help us hold on to moisture this summer, and add some much needed organic material to the clay. Yeah, not bad for 2 days work. I guess my next step probably, thinking Friday morning before I go to work, I'll come up with the leaf mulcher, and I'll try and suck up some of these leaves that have accumulated around the sides of the bed, and I'll throw them on top as a brown layer, and I will give this a nice watering down to keep it moist. Yeah, let's continue to keep our fingers crossed, and I'll keep you updated. Like and subscribe for more content.